Welcome, everybody. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the 49th National Press Club Awards event. I'm Jen Judson, the 115th president of the National Press Club and the land warfare reporter for Defense News. We have a great evening planned to honor journalists and their good work, but I wanted to begin by exercising my privilege as president to offer the 2022 President's Award. At the Press Club, we have a tradition of recognizing a significant journalist with the President's Award. Not every year, but on significant occasion. I immediately thought of Shireen Abu Akleh, correspondent for Al Jazeera, who was killed doing her job reporting in the field. We meet here in Washington, a world away from the West Bank, but you don't have to go far to find people who had worked with Shireen over the years and whose lives she touched. Several of them are here with us tonight at the Al Jazeera table. Can you please stand? Thank you. I'm now going to ask everyone to stand, and if you turn your phone's flashlight on, I'm going to ask you to hold that up and bring the house lights down for a moment of silence for Shireen. Thank you. These Al Jazeera journalists will tell you that Shireen headed out to cover a story 100 days ago. And in many ways, it was like any story she has covered over the last 15 years. There was an element of danger. The assignment was to cover an Israeli raid in Jenin. There would be many armed soldiers of the IDF in the raid. Shireen was ready. She had her helmet. She had her bulletproof vest marked press. And most importantly, she was using all of her experience to stay safe. She was not taking chances. She was not putting herself between IDF forces and Palestinians who might be exchanging live fire. From where she stood, she should have been safe. She would not have seen the soldier who lifted their gun to fire. That soldier was likely hundreds of yards away. She would not have heard the report from the gun. To kill her, a bullet would have to find its way under her helmet, above her flak jacket. The opening is about the size of your first 3 fingers. This much. That's not much room at best. And accidents happen, they're tragic and lethal and almost always followed by deeply felt and significant and public contrition. That hasn't happened. Any statements that Shireen's killing was unintentional isn't based on a full and thorough and independent investigation. That hasn't happened yet. Nobody's come forward to apologize for that awful shot. We at the National Press Club are deeply concerned about what happened to Shireen that day and in the 100+ days that have followed. We think it's important that there be justice for Shireen and her family. This killing cannot be done with impunity. If so, it could lead to more. As Secretary Blinken has said, there must be an independent investigation into the matter led by the United States. Dozens of members of Congress have called for the same thing. This is particularly important because Shireen was an American citizen. So the U.S. has unique standing in this case. We have an obligation to find out what happened to our fellow American, an obligation to have accountability for her life through justice. And of greatest concern to us at the Press Club is that Shireen was a well-known and highly visible journalist. She would have been a well-known face, voice, and name to everyone on the streets that day. She had been on TV every week for 15 years. She was likely known and recognizable to the soldier that killed her. Tonight, the Press Club calls for Israel to identify the shooter or shooters involved that day and take them out of the field, now. Also, we call on the officer who gave approval to take the shot to be taken from the field pending an investigation. More importantly, that investigation can determine what kind of legal changes might be brought and against whom legal charges. But for now, we're trying to ensure that another journalist is not killed before we can fully and transparently investigate the circumstances of Shireen's case. While Shireen's loss was felt across her entire journalist family, it is most acutely felt by her actual family. Tonight, we're grateful to have with us Shireen's niece, Lena, who is her most powerful advocate. I have asked National Press Club member Abdurrahim Fukara, who is the Al Jazeera Bureau Chief in DC and was Shireen's colleague, to speak on behalf of Al Jazeera and welcome Lena. Mr. Fukara.
Thank you very much, Jen, and I would like to thank, obviously, the National Press Club, and in particular, Bill McCarran. The National Press Club has been extremely supportive of us and our causes, not just in the case of Shireen Abu Akleh, but in previous cases. Indeed, the National Press Club has been very supportive to us as journalists, wherever we may be and whatever news outlet we represent, and we're extremely grateful for that. We at Al Jazeera always like to seize the opportunity to remind people, particularly outside the United States, of the great symbolism of the location of the National Press Club here in Washington, D.C., between the Congress, the legislative branch, and the White House, the executive branch. And that symbolism obviously speaks volumes for Americans, but it also speaks volumes for people outside the United States, particularly people who care about press freedom. If I may very quickly quote the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, he said, "Without press freedom, there is no freedom." So on behalf of all my colleagues across the Al Jazeera network in every part of the globe, and some of them are obviously here with us, I would like to thank the National Press Club for this particular occasion, celebrating not just Shireen Abu Akleh and the sacrifice of Shireen Abu Akleh, but the plight and sacrifices of journalists from every part of the globe, including from the United States. Shireen Abu Akleh was a Palestinian, extremely important in so many different ways, but that's not what we are here for tonight. Shireen Abu Akleh was a Christian, important in so many different ways, but again, that's not what we are here for tonight. We are here to celebrate the work of Shireen Abu Akleh and the sacrifice that Shireen Abu Akleh made. She spent a good chunk of her adult life in the service commensurate with the responsibility that is put on us as journalists to serve freedom of the press and to shed light on such a crucial story for war and peace in the world, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As you said, it's over 100 days now since Shireen was killed. Al Jazeera's position has been crystal clear and categorical right from the start. Shireen Abu Akleh was killed by an Israeli bullet, and Shireen Abu Akleh was killed in cold blood, and Al Jazeera is still pursuing justice for Shireen, and Al Jazeera will leave no stone unturned in order to achieve justice for the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh at this particular point. And just to conclude, impunity, the world is rife with impunity. Journalists are killed left, right, and center in today's world. And oftentimes, those who are responsible for their killing get away scot-free with killing journalists. So we also seize this opportunity here at the National Press Club tonight to call for justice for Shireen and for an end to impunity. Thanks again to the National Press Club for having us on behalf of Al Jazeera Network.
I think now we'll be playing a short video.
أصبت بالظهر، والزميل الرصاص الثاني أصابت شيرين وأدى إلى استشهادها. ما كانش عندنا أي مسلحين.
I came here today to pay tribute to an honorable woman, a woman who represented us over 25 years. She was our voice to the world, and this voice has been taken.
הגברת שירין אבו עקלה. ברשות הפלסטינית מיהרו להאשים את...
The shots that killed Abu Akleh came from Israeli security forces.
Also found no reason to believe that it was an intentional killing, but
rather... It's an understatement to say that we are disappointed, and in fact, the report was not comprehensive at all. It was not detailing the process of the investigation. Neither did it include information that we don't already know. All other previous investigative reports have concluded that Israel shot and killed Shireen.
فقد اخترت الصحافة كي أكون قريبة من الإنسان. ليس سهلا ربما أن أغير الواقع، لكنني على الأقل كنت قادرة على إيصال ذلك الصوت إلى العالم. أنا شيرين أبو عقلة.
تنعم بفردوسك الأبدي، حيث لا بكاء ولا صراخ ولا ألم، بل فرح وسلام.
Thank you. Lena, if you join me up here on stage, thank you. And I'd like to present to you the President's Award on behalf of Shireen.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank the National Press Club for honoring Shireen's legacy with the President Award from this renowned establishment. Shireen has been recognized around the world for her dedication and professionalism. Honoring Shireen with this prestigious award is recognition of Shireen's professional work that will set an example for future generations of journalists. I wish Shireen had been here to receive this herself. Unfortunately, we lost her too soon. It is sad that Shireen was killed by an Israeli sniper while doing her job as a journalist. It is an honor for me to receive this award on her behalf of my aunt, who was my best friend and my role model and my source of inspiration. I'm also very glad that Shireen's Al Jazeera family is present among us. Thank you for all that you've been doing to support our family. And I'm so glad to say that Shireen's childhood best friend, Aline, accompanied by her husband, Philip, is also present among us tonight. It has almost been 4 months now since Shireen was killed, but no official action has been taken so far to hold the perpetrators accountable. My family and I are grateful to the support for Shireen to the support we've received from organizations and people who are helping us to keep our demands alive. Justice for Shireen is linked to justice for Palestinians. As a family, we have expected at least from the US administration to take a meaningful action for bringing justice to Shireen as a US citizen and also as a journalist. We have expected from the US president to take the case seriously, as in similar cases. But we will never relent. We will bring justice for Shireen. Thank you all for joining us for our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena, for those inspiring remarks. We join you in calling for justice for Shireen. We're now going to start on our dinner service, and we'll return shortly with the rest of our program. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that delicious meal. You can continue to eat and drink. I think dessert will be passed around as we begin again. So feel free to continue to eat and enjoy your dessert and the rest of your dinner. Tonight we'll be celebrating some great journalism and the journalists who produced some of the best work of the last year. And the best news is that we're celebrating in person again after being virtual the last couple of years. We'll also be honoring promising young students of journalism, and we'll recognize the critical role that journalism plays in informing the public, holding those in power to account. So let's get started and recognize some of the winners of this year's National Press Club Journalism Awards. As we announce tonight's winner, we will hear some remarks from the winner or a representative of a winning group if they're here. Honorable mentions, please join me up here to receive your plaque and pause for a brief photo. Our first category is the National Press Club's Arthur E. Rouse Award for Excellence in Examining the News Media, which is sponsored by Mr. Rouse, a longtime journalist for U.S. News and World Report. We know Mr. Rouse is watching the live stream this evening, and we thank you, Mr. Rouse, for your continuing support for this important prize. Mr. Rouse sent us this note. Oh, yes, we'll clap. Thank you. Mr. Rouse sent us this note that we wanted to share with you. He says, 25 years ago, I established the Rouse Awards for Excellence in Examining the News Media to encourage journalists to monitor their peers in order to keep standards high and protect the vital role of the press in a free society. In an age of shrinking newsrooms and disappearing media critics, it is more important than ever to recognize the essential roles journalists like Margaret Sullivan and Brian Stelter play in elevating our profession and holding us to a higher standard through courageous self-criticism. I salute their valiant work in monitoring the news business so eloquently and effectively. The winner is a team from the Marshall Project for The Language Project. A close look at the importance of language use in covering topics like those incarcerated. Accepting the award on behalf of the Marshall Project is editor Akiba Solomon. If you have any.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this award. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. I'm going to keep this brief. On behalf of my colleagues at the Marshall Project, we thank the National Press Club. And I just want to name a few people who are on the team for the Language Project, which is a series of essays and then also an advisory to journalists on how we write about people who are incarcerated. So Susan Chira, our editor-in-chief, was supportive all the way. Carol Bogart, our president, always supportive. And then my team on the Language Project, Lawrence Bartley, who is the director of News Inside, which is the publication that goes into hundreds of prisons and jails across the country. Katie Park, who is our developer, and Boan Kume, who was the designer. But ultimately at the Marshall Project, as with most things, it was a team effort. And so I thank everyone at the Marshall Project, even though they're not here. Shout out to the Marshall Project. And thank you again to the National Press Club for acknowledging our work. Thank you.
The winner for broadcast was a team from PBS's Frontline for 1,000 Cuts, a documentary that looked at journalist Maria Ressa and her staff at the Rappler, covering the run-up to an election in the Philippines. The team from PBS could not be with us this evening. The honorable mention for broadcast went to host and editorial lead of NPR's Invisibilia, Yowei Shaw, for coverage of publications like 209 Times that thrive in communities where reporters have more territory to cover than they have time or resources, and in news deserts. Yowei could not be with us here in person tonight, but let's give her a round of applause. Our next category is consumer journalism. The Consumer Journalism Awards recognize excellence in reporting on consumer topics, especially work that prompted action by the community, the government, or an individual. The winner of the Consumer Journalism Award for newspapers is Carol Marbin Miller and Daniel Chang from the Miami Herald and ProPublica for Birth and Betrayal, a series exposing the misuse of a Florida state fund created to pay the financial expenses of children whose births left them permanently disabled. Let's hear from Carol, Daniel, and Emily, who could not be with us here this evening.
Like NICA are important to cover because if the Miami Herald doesn't do it, nobody else will. And NICA is a program that had been in existence for 33 years with very little scrutiny, very little attention from the media. Most people did not know that it existed, and they only find out about it at what is probably the worst moment of their lives.
As important as the journalism was with this project, it couldn't have been done without the bravery and graciousness of the families that allowed us into their homes, into their living rooms, meeting some of their children in some instances and hearing about children who didn't survive in other instances. Without them, I don't think we would be here.
And so we felt very, very keenly that we had a responsibility to write these stories and at least shed a bright light on their suffering. We did our job, and that was to bring this system right out into the sunshine. On behalf of Dan Chang and Emily Michaud and our editor, Casey Frank, we are very grateful to you all for this award. It's very humbling, and we thank you very much for this recognition.
Honorable mention goes to Aaron Einhorn and Aaron Mondry of NBC News Digital and Outlier Media for The Fake Landlord, Scam Destroys Lives in Detroit. Aaron and Aaron could not be with us this evening. The winner of Consumer Journalism Periodicals was a team of reporters from ProPublica for Unchecked, America's Broken Food Safety System. Accepting the award from ProPublica is reporter Michael Grabel.
Thank you very much for this recognition from the National Press Club. And I'm really glad that you guys got a chance to eat before we started talking about food safety. But I won't go into too much detail. But this was really a team effort from across ProPublica. So I want to thank a bunch of people. First, my colleague Bernice Yeung, who's now at the UC Berkeley Center for Investigative Journalism, training the next generation of students. One of the great things that happened during this project is we have at ProPublica, we have this thing called the Peer Partners Program, where we work across the newsroom and sort of mentor each other. And while I was doing this project, Bernice and I came across this database of genomic sequences of all sorts of foodborne bacteria that have been found in poultry plants as well as in patients. And we know a little bit of data, but we kind of thought, how are we going to do this? This is really difficult stuff. And I mentioned to my peer partner the problem, and he said, we just hired a fellow who did her PhD work at Stanford on genomic sequencing. And I'm like, I need to meet this person. She needs to come on this project. And sure enough, Irina Wong worked with us on this project and provided great support, as well as Molly Simon on our research desk. Andrea Suozo and Ash Wu built a news app called the Chicken Checker. If you guys ever want to look on your phone, propublica.org/chicken, you can go to your grocery store, There's a number on the package of chicken. You can check to see what the salmonella rates are before you buy that package. ProPublica.org/chicken. All right, and I'll wrap up here. Mariam Jamil from our social media team helped out a lot. I want to thank all the scientists who helped us understand everything and make sure that we were accurately describing it. And I want to thank my editor, our editor, Henri Covan. Without, if you have a great team, that means you have great editors, and without him, we wouldn't be able to pull this all together. And then last, I want to thank Marva Lamping, who invited us into her home and told the story of her husband, who I want to dedicate the award to, her longtime partner, Arthur Sutton, who I want to dedicate this award to, who died too soon from a salmonella infection. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night.
I'm a little relieved we served salmon, but I'm sure there's other stories about salmon we don't want to hear about. A new category this year is the Nell Minow Award for Cultural Criticism. Named for club member Nell Minow, a longtime journalist and movie critic, the Nell Minow Award honors excellence in cultural criticism and recognizes original critiques addressing the state of society or unique commentary on the human experience as related to arts, media, politics, identity, and community. We are so grateful to have Nell and her husband here with us this evening. Nell, would you stand up? The inaugural winner of this award is Daniel Hernandez, food editor at the Los Angeles Times, for his close look at the Latino cultural zeitgeist. Accepting the award this evening is Daniel Hernandez.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, National Press Club. Thank you, Nell Minow, and all of you tonight for being here. I think I'm a kind of an unconventional choice for this award. I don't go to art exhibits and review films or shows. I try to just hit the street and kind of see what people are doing, try to figure out where culture is at the street level, because my belief is that culture rises from the street and from our communities and trickles upward as opposed to downward. And so just to give you a bit of example of the work that I worked on last year, I noticed that during COVID and during the shutdowns, there were more lowrider cruises in LA. And this is where people take out their old cars, they spend years, they're their personal projects. Everyone in the first year of the shutdowns went into their garage. And whether it was music or whatever projects they had, for a lot of people in Los Angeles, the center of car culture, it was their vehicles. And as I noticed this, my editors, shout out to Lori Ochoa, Julia Turner, they were just like, okay, go and start examining kind of what's happening. And it was actually a socially distant activity, right? You stay in your car. But it created these tensions with the neighborhoods. As more people were cruising, there was more crowds gathering. And then there were more kids in kind of like newer cars racing and doing, the donuts and that thing. So I love those points of tension and those points of like contradiction and where there are breaks and there are gray zones. And so I just started going. Reporting is scary. I'm terrified every time I approach a stranger on the street. And I think every reporter shares that, no matter how experienced you are, no matter where you are in the world. Every Saturday night, quietly, sometimes failing, not speaking to anyone, little by little getting to know the writers and the car club members and getting into their worlds. And I try to immerse myself in these cultures, find points of connection, and sort of take it from there. And that's how I approach cultural reporting and cultural criticism, because ultimately I feel journalism is an argument. And every piece of journalism has a thesis. Even when you're reporting facts, you're sort of channeling through your standards and through the standards of your publication and through your community. So I'm delighted by this. Thank you so much for this award, and I appreciate so much being here with you all tonight. Thank you.
Honorable mention goes to McFamily Feud by Beth Coet of Fortune Media. This piece offers an inside look at an institution that borders on universal culture, McDonald's. Beth could not be with us this evening. Let's take a break now and turn to our National Press Club scholarships. One of the highlights of being National Press Club president is presenting the winners of the major scholarships awarded this year. These scholarships are made possible by major fundraising efforts of the National Press Club Journalism Institute, the nonprofit affiliate of the National Press Club. Earlier this year, I had the honor and privilege of calling the students and sharing the good news with them. Katrina Maketa of Houston, Texas, was recognized with the Richard G. Zimmerman Scholarship, totaling a one-time scholarship of $5,000 for high school seniors. Maketa impressed judges with the quality and breadth of her work. She's been editor-in-chief for her high school's Legacy Press newspaper, senior reporter for Youth Journalism International, a reporter contributor for the Los Angeles Times and PBS, an award-winning poet, and more. Let's hear from Katrina.
Hi, I'm Katrina Maketa, and my career goal is to become a broadcast journalist for a national news network. Beyond being informative, stories have the power to shape people's lives, drive social thought, and change our world for the better. I hope to be an objective journalist that tells stories that make an impact in communities all around the world. This scholarship means an opportunity for me to have the right mentorship, resources, and opportunities in college to become the best journalist that I can be. I'm very grateful and appreciative to be awarded this scholarship.
Anessa Carby of Miami Gardens, Florida, was recognized with the Wes Vernon Broadcast Scholarship, totaling as much as $20,000 over 4 years. An aspiring broadcast journalist, Carby impressed judges with her drive and resourcefulness to immerse herself in journalism despite having limited access and opportunities. She created her own reel and coverage even though her school didn't have a formal journalism department, and she sought out the mentorship of a cousin who works in the industry to shadow them. Let's hear from Anissa.
Hello, I am Anissa Carby. I am majoring in broadcast journalism at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Good morning. Welcome to ACNN Anissa Carby News Network. Breaking news. A student named Anissa Carby at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University has just received the Wes Vernon Scholarship to achieve her goals of earning a PhD in journalism studies. Her top journalism goal is to own her own news network to spread positive news and provide great diversity on the screen. She is honored to be a Wes Vernon Scholarship winner. He left a legacy of removing barriers for broadcast journalists from different backgrounds. This inspired her to leave a legacy for individuals from this generation and generations to come to not be intimidated thinking they cannot be on screen because of their background and how they look. Her message is to never lower your self-esteem because of what you see on the screen. No, you can't achieve anything because of who you are. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Congratulations, Anissa. We can't wait to see you do amazing things. Thanks for tuning into ACNN News Network. See you soon.
Wow. I hope Anissa hires me for her news network. Kyla McGee of Raleigh, North Carolina, was recognized with the Scholarship for Journalism Diversity honoring Julie Hsu, totaling as much as $20,000 over 4 years. McGee, a graduate of Leesville Road High School in Raleigh, impressed the judges with her well-roundedness as a journalist, her work portfolio, and she's written for her high school newspaper, The Mycenaean, and Beyond Women's Sports, a site dedicated to coverage of women's sports. Let's hear from Kyla.
Scholarship for Diversity in Journalism. My family and I would have enjoyed being with you in person. However, last week marked the start of classes for my freshman year here at the University of Chapel Hill. I would like to thank the National Press Club, the scholarship judges, as well as President Jen Judson for recognizing me for this year's award. I would also like to thank my parents, family members, and friends for their love and support while laying the foundation to help me realize my full potential as an African American woman to accomplish any goals I set out to achieve. This scholarship opportunity stood out not only because of the prestige of the organization, but because of what it stands for in helping to create a more diverse and inclusive newsroom. I've always had an interest and a career in sports journalism. I mentioned in my application, as a student athlete, I have witnessed firsthand how many women, minorities, and other underrepresented groups are reflected in bias and unfair sports coverage. Many of their stories and topics are even omitted from the media altogether. As a sports journalist, I want to provide a voice for these individuals. Your investment in me to reach these goals means more than I can even express. I plan to do my best as a student at UNC's Hussman School of Journalism and Media to achieve my goal of confronting inequalities in sports and highlighting diversity through the videos and articles I will produce. Thank you again for this awesome opportunity, and I hope to visit the National Press Club in person one day soon.
Sean Cummings of Portland, Oregon was recognized with the Dennis and Shirley Feldman Fellowship, totaling a one-time scholarship of $5,000 for graduate students. Cummings, a freelance writer, has had work appear in the Santa Barbara Independent, Mountain Journal, and the Stanford Daily, as well as in a few regional environmental newsletters in Southern California. He will pursue a science communications master's degree at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Let's hear from Sean.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Cummings, recording this from Portland, Oregon, but by the time you see it, I will be on my way to California to start the Science Communication Master's Program at UC Santa Cruz, which means I will have left my day job, which also means that maybe that might have been the last job I'll ever have where I didn't get to write, where I don't get to learn something new about the physical and biological world every day, and where I don't get to share those discoveries. And that's what I really want out of a career as a science writer. I'm so grateful to the National Press Club for supporting me in that with the Feldman Fellowship, especially because I have shown alarmingly little patience for doing anything else. Last year, I quit a job to try freelancing totally from scratch, pitched stories about green gentrification, assisted migration through horticulture, other stuff. Nothing landed, but just pre-reporting and researching and teaching myself how to craft a pitch was so satisfying. And I'm so looking forward to strengthening those skills at UC Santa Cruz so I can try again. Also excited because I've done only 2 reporting internships so far at Mountain Journal and the Santa Barbara Independent, both formative. But within a year from now, thanks to UC Santa Cruz, I'll have clips from 4 additional reporting internships, which will be an enormous boost as I enter this field in earnest. So thank you again for supporting me through that. Also want to thank Jean Yamamuda, Carrie Mullen, Professors Dawn Snow and Emily Jones for just incredible mentorship to me as a writer and for providing so many letters of recommendation for so many things. I also want to thank the science writers who have inspired me. I wrote in my application to the Press Club about an experience gathering data on Hawaiian reefs as an undergrad and just being awful at it. I was so enraptured by the reef, I couldn't concentrate on counting fish. Writing about them, I found, gives space for that sense of awe, and my favorite science writers use that space. I can't name you all now, but your stories show why life on Earth, human and non-human, is fascinating and wonderful and so worth protecting, especially for reasons beyond economics. And that makes the urgency of extinction and climate crisis, and in the case of my story, coral bleaching, hit harder and I think more productively. So that balance between wonder and distress is the core compass I want to approach my own work with. So thank you for helping me find it. That's all. Thanks again to the Press Club, and I hope to cross paths with all of you in person someday soon.
Right, while we're recognizing this year's National Press Club Scholarship recipients, I'm pleased to welcome a strong supporter of student journalism tonight. We're so grateful to Jackie Lewis and the Lewis family for creating a new National Press Club Scholarship that will help make internships in DC newsrooms more accessible to students of color throughout the country starting next year. The scholarship is named for Bob Lewis, Jackie's late husband, who was a longtime Washington correspondent for Michigan's Booth newspaper chain, who retired as senior editor at Newshouse. He also served as a chair of the club's board of governors in 1970s. Please stand up, Jackie, along with your guests. We're so happy you're here with us tonight, along with journalism interns who we hope to see back here as future award winners. The winner of Consumer News Broadcast was Julie Watts of CBS Sacramento for the COVID Lab State Secrets Exposed. Unfortunately, Julie could not be with us this evening. Honorable mention goes to a team from CBS News for Robin Hood Steals a Life. This story focused on the stock market trading app, which promised customers to make stock trading easy, but whose poor to non-existent customer service created problems. The team from CBS could also not be with us this evening. Now back to our Washington Regional Reporting Award. The winner was Nick Gruby of Honolulu Civil Beat for a close look at the abuse of COVID funds by a Hawaii promotions company. The judges said that his stories embodied the best instincts in regional reporting. He focused on the shuttered venue operator grant program created by Congress to help provide economic relief to music venues and museums that were forced to close due to COVID-19. His investigation found that a little-known concert promoter in Hawaii took advantage of a loophole in the program to secure more than $10 million in grants. Let's hear from Nick.
Aloha, Nick Gruby from Honolulu Civil Beat here. Unfortunately, I can't be there tonight to accept this award in person, but I would like to express my gratitude to the National Press Club and its judges for taking the time and the effort to recognize the work of regional reporters. We face unique challenges here, including too often having to justify our own existence. Our ranks are shrinking, which means our communities are losing touch with Washington. When we're at our best, we're not simply providing reactions to the day's events from the members of our congressional delegations. We're actually putting those events into context for each of our communities and holding our representatives accountable to their constituents. We're also uncovering stories that might otherwise go unnoticed, whether by the national press or the mere fact that we're here on the ground witnessing what's happening. Local journalism matters, not just back home, but here in Washington as well. And with that, I'm going to get off of this soapbox and I'm going to leave you guys with one last thank you. So mahalo.
Honorable mention goes to Orion Donovan Smith of the Spokesman Review of Spokane for his investigation of a VA medical center. Unfortunately, Orion could not be here tonight. On to our breaking news category. The winner for breaking news is a team from National Public Radio's All Things Considered for January 6th coverage. Congratulations to the entire NPR team who I know is here tonight, and accepting the award is Michael Levitt. Michael Levitt and crew.
Michael really wants to, but I'll do it. Hi. Thank you for this. My name is Cara Tallow. On January 6th, I was executive producer of All Things Considered. This team that's standing behind me, including Mallory, come on. Mallory, you was the lead producer on our update shift that night when we took the air for 7 straight hours to try to report on what was happening on Capitol Hill. And I'm sure that you all remember what a clarifying moment that was as a journalist, knowing that this is a time when our public service mission was so incredibly important. When we made phone calls on that day, it was not like any other. We tried to call people and said, hey, can you come on the air and tell us what's going on? What have you seen? What are you hearing? What's happening? And no one else knew what to make of this either. And no one wanted to talk to us. And so it was our eyes and ears on the ground, Tom Bowman, Lauren Hodges, who were out in the field, as well as Hannah Alam, as well as our team who was on site in our headquarters in DC, despite the COVID epidemic, working to make this happen. It was a quarter of our team that was on site that day, not the 40 people who are on our staff making All Things Considered happen every day for 2 hours, but only about 7 or 8 people who were in the building. Everyone else connected by Zoom for 7 hours. And it felt like this was a really appropriate moment. Not that Mary Louise and Elsa Chang don't deserve all the spotlight, but they did a great job. But to give a moment to these folks who made that day possible, who make every day possible, and without whose support and great reporting and writing and producing skills, this would not have happened. So thank you.
Next is the Edwin M. Hood Award for Diplomatic Correspondence, which is named for Hood, a distinguished diplomatic correspondent for the Associated Press and a founding member of the National Press Club. The winner for print was Philip Stewart and his team for the Afghan Air Force, a look at what went wrong in that branch of the military and the whole country. Accepting the award on behalf of Reuters is military and intelligence correspondent Phil Stewart.
Thanks so much. So we're at the 1-year anniversary of the end of the war in Afghanistan. And a year ago, many reporters, including I'm sure some in this room, got lots of calls from Afghans who they knew who were pleading for help, any kind of help to get out. But for us at Reuters, those calls began in earnest months before the fall of Kabul. An Afghan pilot I had met in 2017 reached out and told us about a Taliban assassination campaign targeting Afghan pilots when they went off base. Morale was cratering. After the Taliban takeover, Afghan pilots helped us recount the last gasps and the ultimate collapse of the Afghan Air Force, which spoke to the broader failure of the American project in Afghanistan. Some Afghan pilots spoke at great risk on smuggled cell phones from detention facilities in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. Some spoke from hiding inside Afghanistan. All of them hoped for a rescue from the United States, and after betting their lives that Washington would not turn its back on them. Thanks to Idris Ali, who is a fantastic partner, who helped unravel details on the off-base killings. I'm grateful for Marla Dickerson's fabulous editing, and for having a great editor, Mary Milliken, here in Washington. She is the ultimate positive force in the newsroom. Thanks to all my colleagues, including Kieran Murray, Don Durfee, and Patricia Zengerle, who's on the team and who's here tonight, and Hamid Shalizi, who is not. Great thanks to my family, including my boys who are there, Joshua and to Connor, who I recruited as an unpaid intern and forced to read my drafts out loud to me at late at night. Thanks to my wife and my parents and my sister for their support since this series kind of consumed our entire lives for so long, and with calls at all hours of the night and holidays, before a family wedding that didn't make me very popular. But I'm going to close on a serious note, just by saying the United States may want to move on, understandably, and focus on Ukraine and other things. Afghans are still looking to Washington for help. One Afghan helicopter pilot hiding in Afghanistan, who I came to know, messaged me just yesterday, and he was pretty down. And he said, I'll quote here, I think no one cares about us anymore. So I accept this award also for him and all those people who trusted us with their stories. I know that in this room, they're not forgotten. So thank you.
honorable mention went to Molly O'Toole of the Los Angeles Times for sitting ducks, Biden's pandemic border closure fuels violence against migrants. Molly can't be here with us this evening, but accepting on her behalf is Washington Bureau Chief Kimbriel Kelly. The winner for broadcast was a team from Retro Report PBS's Frontline, ProPublica for Massacre in El Salvador. Accepting the award on behalf of Retro Report is executive producer Kira Darnton. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much to the National Press Club for this incredible honor, and to our amazing partners at Frontline and ProPublica, as well as a team from Retroport led by Kit Rohn. We're particularly grateful because while the massacre at El Mozote took place more than 40 years ago, the struggle to address it is more important now than ever because of the political situation in El Salvador and the threats to journalism and truth. Journalists like Nelson Rauda and Alfaro face incredible challenges, including daily threats, as they try to do their jobs. But they believe that the country can't move forward without confronting its past. And that's fundamentally the mission of our nonprofit news organization. And so we're so honored not only to have received this award, but also through our education initiative to be given the opportunity to tell this story to a generation of young Americans, many of whom have never heard of El Mozote massacre or contemplated their own government's complex Cold War legacy. At Retro Report, we seek to impart a simple message to these students. History matters, facts matter, truths matters. Thank you.
Our next category is newsletter journalism. The winners were Valerie Bauman and Roy Strom of Bloomberg Industry Group for Clients Cry Foul Over a Litigious Litigation Finance Company. Accepting the award tonight is correspondent Roy Strom from Bloomberg Law.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to be here at the National Press Club among a group of people who look around this confusing world and feel an obligation to describe it to our readers and viewers and everybody else who consumes our media. So thank you all. Part of what I do is cover a part of the financial world that views lawsuits as an opportunity to make money, investments, and we found out about this story and chose to write about kind of an improbable group of characters, which were lawyers who were signing agreements that they themselves didn't quite understand. So I thank Bloomberg Law and Bloomberg Industry Group for the chance to tell a story that on its face didn't make all that much sense, but I think showed that even people who are supposedly powerful and smart and intelligent sometimes don't understand deals they're getting into, and in this case, wreaked havoc on some financial lives of sort of personal small law firms around the country who got into financial agreements, like I say, they didn't quite understand and didn't turn out the best for them. So thank you to Bloomberg for the chance to tell that story and to tell other stories that usually start a lot like this speech, which is meandering through a pitch that hopefully finally lands in a punchline, which in this instance is just simply thank you.
Honorable mention goes to a Bloomberg Law piece by Paige Smith that thoroughly demonstrated the dilemma facing lawmakers trying to decide whether or not to eliminate the exemption from the federal minimum wage allowed for nearly 44,000 disabled workers. Paige, please come up and receive your award. Next is the Joan M. Friedenberg Online Journalism Award, which recognizes innovative use of online technology to tell a story. The award honors the memory of Joan M. Friedenberg, founder of the Online News Hour, and the late wife of former club president Jonathan Salant, who I know is here with us this evening. The winners were Hannah Dreyer and Andrew Ba-Tran of the Washington Post for FEMA's Disasters. Accepting the award tonight is Hannah Dreyer, who is now on the investigations team at the New York Times.
Thank you so much to the Press Club. It's especially meaningful to be here tonight at an event that honors Shireen Abu Akleh, who I know is a hero to so many of us in this room. These FEMA stories drew on 10 years of data to reveal profound inequities in federal disaster aid. For one story, we combined census data with FEMA data to reveal that Black disaster survivors were being rejected at twice the rate of other Americans. And for another piece, we showed that poor communities were getting hit again and again while they were waiting for FEMA to approve mitigation projects. After these stories ran, we heard from congressional staffers and people at FEMA's own Office of Innovation asking for our data. They wanted to use it to improve policies. But they had the data the whole time. We got it from them. They just hadn't framed it in a way that was comprehensible. After the stories ran, FEMA made a bunch of reforms, and to date, just since the stories ran, an extra 200,000 people have been able to get help as a result of these changes. I want to thank investigative data reporter Andrew Ba-Tran, who did amazing work for this series, my Post editor, David Finkel. Thank you also to my boyfriend, Jonathan Geyer, who shadow edited so much of this reporting. And thank you again to the Press Club for this wonderful honor.
Honorable mention went to a team from the Palm Beach Post and ProPublica for Snow, Big Sugar's Burning Problem. The team from the Palm Beach Post could not be here tonight. Our next award is the Sandy Hume Memorial Award for Excellence in Political Journalism. The award is named in memory of Sandy Hume, a reporter for The Hill who broke the story of the aborted 1997 coup against House Speaker Newt Gingrich. The winner was Hugo Lowell of Guardian US for Inside How Trump and Aides Sought to Stop Biden's Certification on January 6. Accepting the award tonight is congressional reporter Hugo Lowell of The Guardian US.
Well, thank you for this. I have to keep it brief because I have to go file actually on Trump's response to the DOJ. That dropped around 20 minutes ago, so it's probably just as well. But I am very thrilled to have won this, especially for kind of enterprise reporting, because it's an award with so much congressional history, and of course January 6th is such a uniquely congressional moment. And I think what I found in covering the January 6th committee in this investigation for around the last year or so is that there's just so much before January 6th that took place that people don't know about, and to be able to kind of shine a light on that has been a real kind of privilege. In particular, very proud to have uncovered Trump's phone call to his lawyers at the Willard Hotel the night before, when he effectively asked them ways to overturn the election. It was a call that was not previously reported, and then we then discovered that he was calling his lawyers specifically so he could hide behind attorney-client privilege, so that if the DOJ investigated or if Congress investigated, that would not come out. Unfortunately for Trump, a member on his legal team leaked it to someone else and broke the privilege. So thank you to the Press Club, and thank you to the editors who shaped the coverage, and thank you to my colleagues in the press gallery who've been so supportive for the last year. Thanks.
Thank you, Hugo. I hope the Trump news cycle lets you sleep at some point. The next award is the Joseph D. Ryle Award for Excellence in Writing on the Problems of Geriatrics. The winner was Susie Kim and Laura Strickler of NBC News Digital for Nursing Homes in Crisis. Accepting the award tonight is Laura Strickler, investigative reporter at NBC News.
Thank you so much, the National Press Club. Susie Kim could not be here tonight, but I wanted to thank our wonderful editors, Mark Shoney and Julie Shapiro, who helped us with this so much with this series. Our story looked at how nursing homes, there's very little accountability for nursing home ownership. And there's a lot of questions that have been raised about why nursing home owners are allowed to continue to buy and sell nursing homes when they have when they have shown to be poor stewards and poor caretakers. So I'm really glad that this award exists to spotlight the work of reporters who cover older Americans. My own dad was in a nursing home until he was 90 years old. He had dementia, and it really opened my eyes to the industry and has inspired me to pursue this coverage. So this is I dedicate this to him. Thank you very much.
Honorable mention went to Eleanor Lays of Market Watch for her reporting on a Medicare provider for low-income patients. Unfortunately, Eleanor cannot be here tonight. The Angel Gringa Humor Award is named for the longtime Press Club member who specialized in writing humor for magazines and newspapers. The winner was Scott Vogel of Newsday for Pandemic Eating, a clever look at what and how people were eating during the pandemic. Accepting the award tonight is Scott Vogel of Newsday.
And thank you to the National Press Club, and thank you especially to my Newsday family, many of whom are here tonight, and who support me every single day in my efforts to try to innovate and do things differently, and who encourage me to expand the boundaries of what a food critic can be. Shout out to locally owned news media as well. And special thanks to my editor and good friend, Shauna Van Ness, who never once kicked me out of her virtual office, even when I was Zooming pitches like, what's new in Marshmallow Peeps and like how to eat in your car and things like that. There was a lot of ridiculousness to the writing of that period, but there was a lot of ridiculousness to the times too, along with a lot of terrific heartbreak and loss of life. So. I don't know personally how I would have gotten through some of those days without finding humor in them. And I feel lucky to have been able to help others find humor in them too. Thank you so much.
Our next award is the Ann Cottrell Free Award for Animal Reporting, which is named for the longtime Press Club member who extensively reported about animals and their welfare. We are grateful to be joined tonight by Anne's daughter, Alyssa Free. The winner was, we'll clap. Thank you, Alyssa. Alyssa, are you here? You stand up for just a second. Good to see you. The winner was Rob Odell of the Arizona Republic for Mesa Monkey Farm. Accepting the award tonight is Rob Odell.
Thank you so much for the National Press Club for honoring this story. This story was about a monkey farm in Arizona near Phoenix, where valley fever had infected many of the monkeys at the farm, causing the death of at least 47 of the monkeys over the course of several years. And these valley fever infections also called into question some of the research that was based on them, because when their immune systems were suppressed during trials, the valley fever would reoccur and potentially call into question some of the research that was based on these monkeys. One of the nice things about winning an award that's named after someone is you often get to learn about someone you don't know about, and also someone who has had great impact in this business. And so when researching Anne Cottrell Free, I really came to understand what an amazing person she was and what an amazing career she had. She was the first Washington correspondent for Newsweek and was a regular at Eleanor Roosevelt's female-only press conferences. After World War II, she was a special correspondent in China, covered Gandhi and reported from 14 countries. And that's before she did her extensive animal issues reporting that this award is named for. Some of my colleagues in the business have written books about overcoming harassment in the newsroom culture when they worked in the newsroom in the 1980s. And she worked in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and so I can only imagine what she had overcome during that time period. Another thing that's really great when winning the award is you often meet the family members of the journalist that the award is named for. And so I got to meet her daughter, Alyssa, who's here today. So that was another great thing that came about this award. So far, there has been very little enforcement over some of the violations that we had reported on in Arizona. And so hopefully this award will lead to more prompt enforcement of what's going on there. And so I want to thank the National Press Club and congratulate all the other award winners tonight. So thank you very much.
Rob, you may want this. All right, you can get it later. No? Without it, you have no proof. All right. Honorable mention went to Rachel Fobar of National Geographic for USDA accused of ignoring animal welfare violations in favor of business interests. Rachel could not be with us tonight. Our next award is the Michael Dornheim Award, which recognizes excellence in coverage of aerospace, defense, and the airline industry. The award honors Michael Dornheim, a longtime reporter and editor at Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine. We are grateful to have his brother Dan with us this evening. And is he here? For real? All right, all the way in the back. Good to see you, sir. The winner was Christopher Fries of Airline Pilot magazine for ALPA at 9D. Accepting the award is Christopher Fries.
It's been one of those evenings. Obviously, a mistake was made. And And thankfully nowadays that's something you don't hear airline pilots say much. Thanks to 90 years of history, we can make sure that every airliner that you have, you'll fly on today, has two well-rested, highly trained, highly experienced pilots there on the flight deck. Oddly enough, a month ago, I left professional journalism for a federal job. I'm allowed to still continue on a freelance basis, thankfully. So where'd the thanks go? My team at Airline Pilot Magazine. My editor, Shireen Abu Akleh, thank you for accepting the pitch on this column for our 90th anniversary. My production editor, Susie Fager, for polishing those drafts that were allegedly finished. The Engineering and Air Safety Department, led by their director, Keith Hagee, for the fact-checking and just all the hard work that they do to make sure that the 65,000 pilots in both the US and Canada, representing 40 airlines, have the tools and the resources they need to keep American and Canadian airlines, and indeed all the world's airlines, safe and secure from harm. Special thanks goes to ALPA's president, Captain Joe DePete. His support and encouragement when I decided to jump careers and unfortunately leave his fine organization was unparalleled. I couldn't ask for a more supportive leader out there. It's not easy to get here, so my continued thanks go to every editor who has ever read, bought, or published any of my work. Every single teacher, both English and journalism, who pushed me to just be better and dig deeper research-wise. And of course, my folks. Wouldn't be here without them. Both of them contributed unique elements to my writing style and my research. And I'm unbelievably thankful to both of them, who are probably both watching on YouTube. So shout out to you there. Thank you again, National Press Club, and all of you. Thank you.
Honorable mention went to Tom Risen, North America Air Transport reporter at Cirium Dashboard, for his solid beat coverage of the aviation industry. Tom is not here this evening. The Lee Walchek Award for Political Analysis is named after the late Lee Walchek, a Washington editor, bureau chief, and White House correspondent who worked for Bloomberg News and Business Week. The winner is Jen Vietchner of Fortune Media for Dominion Voting: Big Lies versus Big Lawsuits. Let's hear from Jen.
So much to the National Press Club for this incredible honor. To receive an award in political analysis is especially significant for me as a business journalist who before this story had never covered politics. But that's why we set out to cover the story of Dominion Voting Systems, because we believe that this company in particular could potentially answer one of the most maddening political questions of the past several years. Is there a consequence to telling a lie? And how do you bring such liars to justice? Dominion would show that the human cost, as well as the financial cost of the big lie was enormous, had seized a unique opportunity to fight back. And while that battle is still playing out in the courts, Dominion is also a case study of the power of corporations to take a stand on political issues that are increasingly impacting business. So I want to thank Fortune and my editors Cliff Leaf, Brian O'Keefe, and Matt Heimer for trusting me with this story, despite the fact that it was a bit outside my wheelhouse. And thank you to all my sources who put aside politics for a moment to draw the line between what's true and what's not. Thank you again.
Honorable mention went to Cameron Joseph of Vice News for After January 6th, Where Democracy Goes From Here. Cameron, please come up and receive your award. Our final award this evening is the News Photo Award. The winner is J. Scott Applewhite of the Associated Press for Chaos in the House Chamber and his work on January 6, 2021. Accepting the award is Scott Applewhite.
Look at you all, room full of journalists letting a photographer speak last. Who knows? You know, while contests aren't the reason that we do what we do, tonight is a good reminder that the work we do is good work and that it fulfills the mission of journalists. And, you know, the U.S. Capitol, where I work, is practically the safest building in America, but that changed dramatically on January 6th, 2021, as rioters stormed the building to stop the official count and the certification of the presidential election. It's a story that's still being written. You know, it took all of us to tell the story that day. Not everyone had the freedom to move around. My great colleagues and competitors, I shouldn't say competitors, our rivals at Reuters and Getty and the Washington Post and the New York Times, I'd like to think we make each other better every day. But it took all of us to tell the story, and I just had one small viewpoint from the House chamber. You know, I've been at this a while, and one thing I've learned is that some moments are hard to look at and some are hard to look away from. But whatever the moment might be, the job of a photojournalist, actually the responsibility, is to show people what they can't see on their own. And to do that, we have to be there. I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for two people or two groups I'd like to thank tonight. One is Sarah Wire from the Press Club and who works for the LA Times. You know, cameras aren't usually allowed in the House chamber, and we were only going to be allowed in for the banging of the gavel, and that's it. But after an appeal with, I'm the chairman of the Photographers Gallery on the Hill, and I worked with Sarah and her gallery, the House Press Gallery, they stood with us when we were told that we wouldn't be able to stay in there. And their backbone and their resolve against the official gatekeepers who told us, Sarah and them, they told the speakers folks that didn't want us to be in there too long that, no, you don't tell us what to do. And we took the seats of some of the reporters. And so these pictures were only made with their help, but also I'm only standing here tonight to tell this story because of the heroism of our friends on the U.S. Capitol Police, and I accept this in their honor. So thank you.
Honorable mention goes to Marcus Yam of the Los Angeles Times for his excellent photography of the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan. Marcus could not be here this evening. And that wraps up our program tonight. Before we leave, I would like to recognize the work of the dozens of judges of the Press Club contest. Led by our awards team co-chairs, Alicia Mundy and Will Lester, they volunteered a lot of time and expertise to review each entry with very careful thought and consideration. I know many are in the audience tonight, so if you judged one of our awards, please stand up and be recognized. Our thanks also go to Jillian Rich and Alexis Garcia and the Scholarship Committee and all who worked with them to judge scholarship applications. And of course, our wonderful Press Club staff, chefs, servers, and everyone that worked to put together this wonderful evening. And thank you to everyone who took part in the National Press Club Journalism Awards this year, and to those who attended our event, good night.